My husband turns pale at his 7-year-old niece's spoken remarks. What is the sad truth that is hidden in the new house? Jasmine, I think you should reconsider this house. There's hidden sadness here, my sister Ariana said, her voice laced with worry. A few days after my wedding party and moving into our new house, I invited Ariana and her daughter Maria over for a visit. It was during that visit that Maria made her cryptic remark. "Hey now, a kid shouldn't be suddenly telling scary stories like that," my husband Jason exclaimed, clearly spooked. I thought he was just easily frightened, taking a child's words too seriously. But there was another reason he was so unnerved. I'm Jasmine, a 27-year-old pharmacist. My sister Ariana lives nearby, so I often babysit and look after her daughter Maria. Because of this, Maria has taken a shine to me. She's such a sweet girl. Every time Ariana comes to pick her up, she tells me, "You're the one who asked me to watch her, but you spoil her way too much." Of course, when I'm babysitting Maria, Ariana always reminds me, "I've told you so many times that you can't just coddle kids when raising them." But I jokingly brush it off, figuring child-rearing guidance is a mother's responsibility. That's my usual routine. Ariana works as a busy nurse. Since she's assigned to the well-paying inpatient ward, she regularly works night shifts too. I'm a pharmacist at an outpatient pharmacy, so my hours are set, and I don't have overnight shifts. When the pharmacy is closed, I have the day off, and I never get called in suddenly due to staff shortages. So when Ariana is swamped, I end up taking care of Maria. Maybe it's because she understands her situation, but compared to other 7-year-olds, Maria is composed and sensible. They say girls mature faster than boys, but in Maria's case, I think it's mostly due to her home environment. In my efforts to make sure she doesn't feel lonely, I ended up spoiling her a bit. Maria is a quiet, low-maintenance child, but she does have one ability that normal folks find hard to comprehend. For example, if I say something like, "We played so much at the park today, I didn't realize how late it got. Should we take a shortcut home?" Maria will respond with, "Jasmine, not that way. There's something bad there, so let's go the long way around." Something bad? I've heard that children are very intuitive and can sense things adults can't see or hear, but is that true? Honestly, I'm a bit skeptical. Then one day, a regular male customer at the pharmacy asked me out to lunch. When you hear "a regular" at a pharmacy, you might assume they're chronically ill. But that's not always the case. This man was seeing the doctor regularly due to a work-related injury, but he was otherwise quite healthy. Since he frequently came to the pharmacy where I work, we started to make small talk and got to know each other a bit. As his injury was steadily improving, he mentioned he might not need to come in anymore. He invited me to lunch. After a few lunch dates, he asked me out to dinner. We had drinks at a rather fancy bar. His name was Jason. With some alcohol in me, I started to let my guard down and open up to him about myself, and I began to think crossing the line with him was just a matter of time. That's when he passionately proposed to me. "I want to marry you right now. I can't imagine my life without you, Jasmine," he said. When he said that, I was so happy and moved that he needed me in his life. I couldn't find any reason to refuse, so I felt drawn in and agreed to marry him. Then Jason lifted me in his arms with no regard for who might see. Giddy like a child, I found that side of him charming too. Furthermore, he suggested, "Let's have a wedding ceremony with just the two of us right away." He said he had an acquaintance in the bridal industry who would prioritize our wedding above all else. It was a delightful suggestion, but I really wanted to be blessed by my loved ones at the wedding ceremony, so I turned down that idea. Jason looked disappointed, which honestly pained me to see. Nevertheless, my desire to have my loved ones' blessings was firm, so I stuck to my stance. Though he seemed let down, he respected my feelings and backed off. I was fond of that considerate nature of his as well. The day after experiencing the greatest happiness of my life, I caught Ariana before work to tell her the wedding news. Seeing her so overjoyed for me, as if it were her life event, I felt I had made the right choice by not getting swept up in the moment and holding a private ceremony. As I was dreamily reminiscing about the events of the previous day, I got a message from Jason saying he wanted to see me. I had heard early in our relationship that Jason had a younger sister, but I found out she was sick in the hospital. When I asked him why he didn't tell me sooner, he said he didn't want me to accept his proposal out of sympathy. I told him I wouldn't agree to marry him just out of pity, and he gently replied, "I know." When Jason showed me a photo of his sister, he shared, "When I told my sister about you, Jasmine, she said she couldn't wait to have you as a big sister. I wanted to fulfill her wish as soon as possible." When he took my hand and said, "Let's become a family soon," I felt myself getting carried away again. But even before I married Jason, there shouldn't have been any issue with me visiting his sister. I asked Jason if I could please go see his sister in the hospital, but he told me, "Shortly after I met you, her condition worsened and she couldn't have visitors anymore." When I asked, "Is it really okay for you to be seeing me when your sister is going through such a hard time?" he said, "The only thing I can do for my sister right now is pray." Seeing him overwhelmed with the feeling of helplessness, saying, "Damn it all, I can only rely on God," I sincerely wanted to be by his side, supporting him. From the next day onward, I heard nothing at all from Jason. I wondered if his sister's condition had deteriorated. I hoped he wasn't pushing himself too hard. About 3 days passed like this, and then Jason showed up at the pharmacy with his usual cheerful demeanor. When he said, "I could have emailed you, but I wanted to see your face in person," that was more than enough for me. We made plans to meet up after we both finished work. I headed to our meeting spot at the appointed time to find Jason waiting for me. He explained that his sister's condition had worsened, so he had been by her side constantly the past few days, just as I had guessed. Visitors outside of the family still weren't allowed, but her condition had stabilized, which was a relief to hear. Furthermore, he handed me a letter. He said it was entrusted to him by his sister. I must have looked confused, wondering how she could write a letter in her poor state of health. Picking up on what I was thinking, Jason added, "Apparently she wrote it without me knowing." Jason shyly confessed, "Actually, I was drawn to you long before we started dating." In other words, it seems he had told his sister about me even before we were a couple. The letter was filled with heartfelt wishes, hopes that her brother's love would be realized, that she would be happy to have me as a big sister soon, wondering if she could be the flower girl at our wedding party. Fighting an illness must be agonizing, so painful that you don't have the energy to think of others. Yet, reading those words about her feelings toward her brother and me, his girlfriend, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. "Let's get married soon," I said to Jason with conviction. In reality, it would be extremely difficult for his sister to attend our wedding party, but I wanted to let her witness her beloved big brother's special day. I managed to get the name of the hospital where she was staying out of him. I found out that there was a wedding venue near that hospital. It would be a bit of a stretch, but I thought if we held our wedding party there, maybe his sister could feel like she was in attendance, even just faintly, making it out from her hospital room or the rooftop. I shared this idea with him. Jason seemed deeply moved that I was thinking so much about his sister. Of course, he agreed, and we quickly set a date as we hurriedly made wedding preparations. Jason suddenly came to me with a concern. His sister's condition had deteriorated again, and she urgently needed surgery. The surgical costs were going to be higher than anticipated, so he wanted to allocate the money he had saved for our wedding expenses toward the surgery instead. In the first place, I wondered if it was the right mindset to hold a wedding party when his sister was in that state, so I suggested, "Why don't we just postpone our wedding party until after your sister's surgery when things settle down?" But he responded, "No, if she finds out our wedding party was delayed because of her, she'll feel so guilty that even a curable disease won't get better." I was at a loss for words after he said that. In the end, we decided to proceed with the wedding party as scheduled. We resolved that I would cover the full cost of the wedding party up front, and we would split it halfway after he finished paying his sister's surgical expenses. Jason and I proceeded with our wedding preparations, but the truth is we hadn't completed the legal marriage registration yet. We had decided to hold our wedding party as planned to reassure his sister, but we had agreed to choose an appropriate time for the official registration. Even though we weren't legally married, Jason was still the person I sincerely loved, and I was already prepared to welcome his sister into my family on our wedding day. A fair number of our close friends and family gathered. My sister Ariana even took time off work because it was her little sister's special day. My cute niece Maria also attended, dressed up for the occasion. But perhaps because she doesn't interact much with adult men, or maybe she's just shy, she didn't really try to talk to Jason and quickly hid. I watched her adorable behavior with a smile. The ceremony was held in a small church. The venue was decorated with lovely flowers, and a gentle light streamed in. Surrounded by our cherished guests, I exchanged eternal vows with Jason. Afterward, a reception was held at a restaurant near the church. Amidst the intimate atmosphere, we received congratulations from our guests. Ariana gave a wonderful speech saying, "I sincerely wish for my sister's happiness." I felt increasingly enveloped in bliss throughout the reception. Jason had a constant smile on his face, but occasionally I could see hints of concern about his sister's condition. It was understandable. I gently encouraged him during those moments. Although we weren't legally married yet, we would overcome difficulties together from now on. I silently vowed this to myself. After the wedding went smoothly, I moved into the house where Jason had been living. He had suggested I move in there since it was too big for him alone, so I decided to do so. Given the situation with his sister's surgery expenses, it wasn't realistic for us to get a new place, so we figured I would just move into his house in a crashing at his place kind of way. Hey, pause for a moment. Would you care to support us? Like this video and subscribe for more. Now let's dive back into the story. While Ariana understood my decision, she still worried that a new home might be better. She seemed so concerned that to put her mind at ease, I decided to invite her and Maria over. Jason readily agreed to have them visit. As soon as Ariana arrived, she started checking every corner of the house, showing her worry. "Ariana, this is a bit rude, you know," I said. "Wow, being the president of an import company sure is profitable," Ariana remarked. "Does this put your mind at ease now?" Jason responded to my sister. For the time being, my sister seemed satisfied. However, with me moving in, it became difficult to babysit Maria as frequently as before. It was too far to watch her often, plus I realized my time would also be limited, as I wanted to help take care of Jason's sister going forward. At that moment, Maria suddenly started saying something cryptic out of the blue. "Jasmine, I think you should reconsider living in this house. There's hidden sadness here," she said. "I believe what?" I couldn't help but ask. "Because there's already a woman living here," Maria stated clearly. "Hey, there are things even kids should and shouldn't say," Jason said, seeming offended. "Wait, can you see her?" I felt bad for Jason, but I asked Maria. When she confidently answered, "Yes," Jason's anger from a moment ago disappeared, replaced by sudden fright. Seeing Jason like that, I felt the need to explain and smooth things over. "Maria is very intuitive. Are you perhaps not good with spiritual stuff?" I asked. "That's not it, but don't just start telling ghost stories out of nowhere," Jason said, still seeming spooked. "It's not a ghost story, you know. It's someone you know well. A woman with long hair, always tied back. She has narrow eyes and a mole near her eye," Maria said. The color drained from Jason's face. He was freaking out from fear, but it seemed like there was more to it than that. What convinced me of this was Maria's next words. "Hey, what's your real name? You use so many different names that I forgot," she said. Jason raised his voice, though trembling. "Shut up, you damn brat! Don't say such nonsense!" "Hey, don't take it out on Maria," I said. I felt that what Maria was saying was true. "Shut up!" Jason shoved me. It didn't seem like he was just panicking from fear after all. No matter how strange Maria's words may be, they always end up being right. I whispered to Ariana, asking her to check inside Jason's bag. In the meantime, I decided to back down for now to distract Jason. "I'm sorry. Maria said some rude things, didn't she?" I said. "Yes, as long as you get it." "Geez, what an unpleasant experience on my precious day off," Jason said, glaring at Maria. But she glared right back, unfazed. She nonchalantly turned away. "You're right, you have a long business trip starting tomorrow," I said, as I tried to appease Jason with considerate words. His anger seemed to gradually subside. The topic shifted to what souvenirs I might like, but that didn't last long. Ariana had found a driver's license in Jason's bag, but the name on it was one I didn't recognize. Moreover, several cell phones came out of his bag. "Jasmine, this guy might be trouble. Aren't these burner phones?" Ariana said. "Burner phones, like the ones often used in scams and stuff." "Exactly. Contracted under other people's names or fake identities. It's illegal," I said. "So what if they are? Thanks to that, you get to eat fancy meals and enjoy rich dates, don't you?" Jason seemed to imply that I was also complicit. "Don't screw with me! My sister is nothing like a scumbag like you," Ariana yelled at Jason. "The woman is clinging to her brother's body like she'll never let him go." Maria started talking again. "Huh, don't spout nonsense, you damn brat," Jason said. Jason seemed to be brazenly confronting us now that his true nature was being exposed, yet he showed no signs of running away. Likely confident he wouldn't be caught, he appeared so composed. I thought he might be internally laughing at us, but the next moment he found himself in a bind. Police, several officers, barged in and surrounded Jason after finding the driver's license. Ariana had immediately contacted the police. She waited a bit to buy some time before informing me that the license had been found. By that point, the police had already arrived, so the conversation currently unfolding was completely known to them. Several women had already filed police reports, and their descriptions closely matched Jason's appearance. Jason was swiftly taken into custody by the police. I simply stood there dazed as he was led away. Later, during police questioning, Jason readily admitted to his crimes, either because he had given up or because he calculated that confessing would lighten his sentence. It seems he had also been planning to scam me into marriage and take my money. The surgical expenses for his possibly non-existent sister were likely part of that scheme. Furthermore, Jason had a past incident where he ended up killing a woman he was dating after an argument. The cause of the argument was the result of him stopping her from going to the police after she learned about his true nature. But I couldn't help but wonder why he suddenly confessed to this now. The police officer explained that to me as well. The night Jason was arrested, he woke up in agony in the holding cell to find long strands of hair wrapped around his neck. He confessed because he thought she would curse him at this rate, the officer said. When I asked if the hair was real, they laughed and said, "Of course not. He also insists there are finger marks on his neck, but he's the only one who can see them. Sometimes people try to escape reality like that," the officer said. But recalling the image of the woman Maria had described in front of Jason, I felt a chill run down my spine. Based on Jason's confession, the investigation proceeded, and the skeletal remains of a woman were discovered in a mountain. It made the news, and when a photo of the woman's face was released, she matched the appearance Maria had described. Both Ariana and I came to fully believe in Maria's abilities. Jason's fraud case also made the news, and more victims started coming forward. There seemed to be many more crimes yet to be uncovered. He would likely spend a long time behind bars with heavy charges, and every day in prison, he's said to be constantly terrified of the woman's ghost. I could only be appalled at my lack of judgment for even considering marrying such a man. After the trial for the case in which I was a victim concluded, and I was finally free from all of it, I felt completely done with marriage. I moved back to a place close to where Ariana and Maria lived, so I started frequently looking after Maria again, just like before. Several months passed. That day I took Maria to a Halloween festival being held in the area. As I was walking hand in hand with Maria, who was dressed in an adorable doll-like costume, a wallet fell out of the pocket of the man walking in front of us. I picked it up and called out to the man, but he didn't seem to hear me over the surrounding noise. I scooped Maria up and jogged to catch up with him, handing him the lost item. The man was a pleasant person and thanked me sincerely. We ended up chatting for a bit, hitting it off right away. In the end, he ended up joining us and enjoying the festival that day. "That's great, Jasmine. You and that man have been connected since before you were born," Maria said. "Maria, what are you saying now?" "Geez," I said as I blushed bright red at Maria's words. He also turned red, going along with it. "You never know where you might find a new encounter," I said. I had a feeling this could be a new romance. Let's conclude the story shortly. The man, whose name was Jordan, was indeed a new encounter for me. He was kind and funny and shared my love for Maria. We started dating, and as time went on, I realized that Jordan was everything Jason wasn't. He was honest, genuine, and truly loved me for who I was. Maria, ever the insightful child, was right. Jordan and I were connected before we were born, and our connection blossomed into a beautiful love story. I learned that sometimes, even in the darkest of times, when you least expect it, life can surprise you with unexpected happiness. And in the end, it was Maria, the little girl who saw the hidden sadness, who led me to the true love I had been searching for. After experiencing the full journey of our story, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How did the story resonate with you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. president of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.